Before we begin tonight's story, I want to ask you something. Have you ever thought you finally reached your happy ending, only to hear a phone ring and realize the story was never over? That's what happened to Amelia. Just when she thought the war was behind her, the past called. Literally. And what she heard might destroy everything she rebuilt. Welcome back to Mr. Peter's Story House. I'm Mr. Peter, and tonight you're listening to the final chapter of a love story filled with lies, legacy, betrayal, and second chances. But don't be fooled. This ending has one last twist. So get comfortable, and let the story begin. The next morning, Amelia woke up to a knock on her apartment door. 3 men in dark suits stood outside. One of them, an older gentleman with silver hair and hawk-like eyes, stepped forward. "Miss Brooks?" he asked curtly. "Yes," she replied, confused and half-dressed in an oversized t-shirt. "I represent Mr. Malcolm Crane, Alexander's father." The man handed her a sealed envelope. Inside was a legal document, a non-disclosure agreement, a check, and a one-way plane ticket to Geneva, Switzerland. The letter read, "You will never contact Alexander again. You will never speak of this pregnancy to the press. In exchange, your medical expenses will be covered, and you will receive monthly financial support so long as you stay out of the country." Amelia blinked hard. "Is this a joke?" "No, Miss Brooks," the man said coldly. "This is your only option. Should you decline, we will see to it that no clinic accepts you, that no landlord rents to you, that no employer hires you. We are very thorough, Miss Brooks." Her legs felt weak. "Why is he doing this?" "It's not Alexander," the man said with a flicker of something unreadable in his voice. "This comes directly from Malcolm Crane. Consider it family protection." She signed the paper that afternoon, her hand trembling. She didn't do it for the money. She didn't even do it for herself. She did it for the tiny life inside her. She took the ticket. She disappeared. And for 5 long years, she raised her sons in silence. In a quiet village outside Lucerne, Amelia lived under a false name. Amy Barlow worked at a bookstore by day and tucked in 2 bright-eyed boys at night. Their names were Liam and Caleb, both with messy dark hair, both with Alexander's eyes. She told them stories every night, never once mentioning their father. But every year on their birthday, she'd cry alone in the kitchen over cake, balloons, and the guilt of silence. Until one day, the bell above the bookstore rang. An elderly woman with kind eyes walked in and bought a worn copy of The Little Prince. Before she left, she slipped an envelope into Amelia's hand. "This is for you. I was told to give it to you in 5 years. Inside, a ring. A family ring. Engraved with the initials MC. Malcolm Crane. And beneath it, a note. They deserve to know the truth. Come home." Amelia's hands shook. Who sent this? Why now? And how did they know where she was? She didn't sleep that night. The next morning, she booked 3 tickets to Los Angeles. It was time to return. Not for revenge. Not for closure. But for the boys. They deserved their truth. Even if the man who gave them life had once turned his back. This time, he wouldn't be able to look away. The private jet touched down at LAX just after midnight. Amelia clutched her handbag tightly as she stepped onto the tarmac, flanked by her 2 sons, Liam and Caleb. The boys yawned, their tiny hands wrapped around her fingers, unaware of the storm they were about to walk into. She hadn't set foot on American soil in 5 years. Everything smelled different, like hot asphalt and airport fuel, mingled with an uncomfortable sense of déjà vu. The man waiting near the black SUV didn't speak. He simply nodded and held the door open. They were expected. The note had said, "Come home." It hadn't said, "Who will be waiting?" The ride was silent, the city blurring past in gold and blue. Los Angeles hadn't changed. Neon signs. Billboards. High-rises lined with ambition and arrogance. But Amelia had changed. She was no longer the girl in silk and uncertainty. She was a mother now, with two small souls who looked up at her like she held the moon in her pocket. As they passed a glowing billboard of Alexander Crane, smiling in a tuxedo, holding a glass of champagne for some luxury brand, Amelia's jaw tightened. The world still adored him. But would he recognize the consequences of his choices? The SUV pulled into the driveway of a large estate on Mulholland Drive. Not the Crane mansion, Amelia had made sure of that. This place belonged to someone else. A woman opened the door before they even knocked. She was in her 60s, with sleek gray hair tied in a low chignon and piercing green eyes. "Welcome back," she said simply. "You must be Amelia." "Yes," Amelia replied, trying to hide her nerves. "And these are my sons." The woman crouched to meet the boy's eyes. "You must be Liam. And you must be Caleb. I've heard stories." The boys looked at their mother, unsure. "I'm Grace," the woman said. "Your grandfather Malcolm's personal secretary. And his most trusted fixer." That explained a lot. Grace led them inside a cozy but luxurious guest house with fresh linens, a stocked kitchen, and a single note on the coffee table. It read, "Your invitation to the Crane Foundation Gala is enclosed. You will arrive at 7 p.m. Formal attire required. He will be there." No signature. Just the heavy implication. The next evening, Amelia stood in front of the mirror in a black velvet gown. It hugged her curves modestly and shimmered faintly under the light, like shadows brushing moonlight. Her hair was pulled into a sleek twist, revealing the diamond-studded earrings she hadn't worn since that night 5 years ago. The twins were dressed in little tuxedos, each holding her hand. "You look like a queen," Liam said proudly. She smiled. "Tonight, Mommy is going to be brave." "Are we gonna meet him?" Caleb asked. She knelt to his level. "Yes. And I'll be right there beside you." They nodded, trusting her completely. Amelia swallowed the lump in her throat and picked up her clutch. Inside it was the ring. The Crane Foundation Gala was the biggest social event of the year. Held at the Rosemore Hotel's Grand Ballroom, it was a parade of power, CEOs, celebrities, politicians, and people who thought they were more important than they actually were. Photographers flashed like lightning at the entrance. Security scanned every guest. Waiters floated like ghosts with trays of champagne and caviar. Amelia arrived fashionably late, 7:15 p.m. Heads turned. Whispers bloomed. "Is that her? She looks familiar. She brought children? Is that the ex-girlfriend? The one who vanished?" She ignored them all. Her eyes were locked on one figure across the room. Alexander Crane. He hadn't changed. Still tall. Still handsome. Still wearing a navy blue tuxedo that cost more than most people's rent. He laughed at something a woman said, holding a glass of something amber and expensive. But when he saw her, the glass slipped just slightly in his grip. And when he saw the boys, he went pale. Amelia walked forward, slow and deliberate, each step echoing across polished marble like a countdown. When she finally reached him, the room had gone silent. Alexander looked at her like a ghost had risen from the grave. "Amelia," he breathed. She tilted her head, smiling politely. "Hello, Alexander." He opened his mouth, closed it, then opened it again. What is this?" She gestured to the twins. "These are your sons. Liam and Caleb." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Alexander's jaw tightened. "Why now?" She reached into her clutch and held out the ring. The family ring. His father's ring. Because someone wanted you to remember what you lost. He took the ring slowly, staring at it like it was made of poison. How did you get this? That's not the question you should be asking, she said softly. Then what is? She looked him directly in the eyes. Why did your father keep me away from you, and why are you only finding out now? The ring burned in Alexander's palm like it was made of fire. He couldn't take his eyes off it. That ring was supposed to be buried with his father. It had vanished from the Crane estate the night of the funeral. Now here it was, in the hands of a woman he hadn't seen in 5 years. Amelia. Her name still felt sharp on his tongue. His gaze flicked down to the boys, identical, wide-eyed, confused. They looked exactly like him. Too much like him. The weight of realization slammed into his chest like a truck. They were his. No DNA test needed. He felt it. Saw it. Couldn't deny it. Where have you been? He asked, voice tight. Why now? Amelia didn't flinch. Ask your father. My father is dead. Exactly. For a moment, Alexander couldn't speak. A million questions clawed at his throat, but none made it past his lips. The silence between them was louder than the music resuming around them. Then he said quietly, we need to talk. Privately. Amelia nodded once. I'll meet you outside. 10 minutes later, they stood in the courtyard garden, the soft hum of the gala fading behind thick hedges and hedgerows. Alexander paced like a man losing his mind. 5 years. 5 years you were gone. And you never tried to reach me? I did. But I was erased before I had the chance. She pulled a folded paper from her clutch. Do you recognize this? He took it. Read. Froze. His eyes scanned the non-disclosure agreement. The one with his father's signature. And her name. And the payout. This can't be real. It's very real. Your father sent men to my door the next morning. Told me to disappear. Or else. Alexander ran a hand through his hair. Why? Why would he? Because I was a waitress. Because I wasn't good enough. Because I wasn't part of his empire plan. Her voice cracked, but she didn't cry. He gave me a one-way ticket and a threat. And I believed him. For my son's safety, I left. Alexander sank onto a stone bench, his legs suddenly unsteady. He told me, you aborted it. That you took the money and left. Amelia's breath hitched. He told you that? He said you'd manipulated me. That you planned it. That you were just another opportunist. And you believed him. She wasn't asking. Just stating the bitter truth. Alexander said nothing. He didn't have to. The silence said everything. Inside the gala, the twins sat beside Grace, happily eating tiny cheesecakes. They had no idea that the world was tilting outside in the moonlight. Amelia sat down next to Alexander, her voice calmer now. I didn't come back to hurt you. Or embarrass you. I came because someone sent me your father's ring. With a note. Who? I don't know. But the note said, they deserve the truth. And you think he changed his mind before he died? I don't know what I think. But someone wanted me to come back. And now you know. Alexander stared at her like he was seeing her for the first time. Are they happy? Amelia's lips softened. They are everything to me. They love space and dinosaurs and waffles. Liam wants to be an astronaut. Caleb wants to be a chef. They're smart, stubborn, and way too observant. Like you. Like you. She smiled faintly. Alexander leaned back. I don't even know where to begin. Start by being honest. With them. And with yourself. Later that night, back at the guest house, Amelia tucked the twins into bed. Her heart was racing. Every breath felt like the beginning of a new life, or the echo of an old wound. Her phone buzzed. A text. Unknown number. It said, he's not the only one who made a deal. She froze. Another message followed. A photo of the NDA contract. But this one wasn't hers. It had a different woman's name. And at the bottom, Malcolm Crane's signature again. In a dark room across town, a man watched the security footage from the gala. He zoomed in on the moment Amelia handed the ring to Alexander. He paused. Rewound. Zoomed again. His fingers drummed against the leather desk. Then he picked up a phone. She's back, he said to the person on the other end. And the boys look exactly like him. Begin phase 2. At the same time, Grace sat in her own room, sipping brandy by the fireplace. She held an old photo in her lap, Malcolm Crane as a younger man, standing beside a woman who looked eerily like Amelia. Her eyes welled with unshed tears. Forgive me, she whispered to the photo. But they deserve better. Back in the garden, Alexander sat alone long after Amelia left. The ring still in his hand. The past still crashing in his head. And somewhere deep in the Crane family vault, a locked drawer waited to be opened. It held the rest of the truth. The one that could either save or destroy them all. Alexander stood before the Crane estate's underground vault for the first time in years. The heavy steel door loomed before him, a monstrous relic sealed with a biometric lock and his father's cruel legacy. The last time he had been here was the day of the funeral, when Malcolm Crane was lowered into the ground with thunderous applause and silent betrayals. He had never questioned what was hidden beneath the house. Until now. He pressed his thumb to the scanner. It beeped once. Green light. Access granted. The door slid open with a hiss. Cold air rushed out like the breath of a ghost. The vault was lined with black shelves and glass cases. Decades of secrets lived here. Legal documents, contracts, hard drives, handwritten letters, safe deposit boxes with no labels. Everything Malcolm didn't want the world to know had been buried here, safe behind steel and shame. Alexander stepped inside, and the lights flickered to life, one row at a time. He found it immediately. The drawer with his name on it. Inside, a thick manila folder, a black USB drive, a sealed envelope with the word confessional written in silver ink, and a photograph, one that made Alexander's knees weaken. It was Amelia. Younger. Holding a baby blanket. Crying. The photo was timestamped a week after she disappeared. And on the back, his father's handwriting, paid. Gone. Handled. Alexander gritted his teeth. He opened the envelope first. It wasn't a letter. It was a transcript. A transcript of a recorded conversation between Malcolm Crane and Grace, his trusted fixer. He read every word. Malcolm's voice, she's pregnant. You know what to do. Grace's voice, sir, she's young. She doesn't want money. She wants Alexander. Malcolm, she's poor. They always want money. Offer double. Grace, what if she refuses? Malcolm, then make sure she doesn't have a choice. We can't have a waitress corrupting the Crane bloodline. Grace, he will find out eventually. Malcolm, only if we let him. Grace, and the baby? Malcolm, the baby is irrelevant. Alexander felt sick. He dropped the envelope on the floor and paced the vault in fury. Every lie his father had fed him. Every manipulation. Every silence. He had trusted a man who erased his future with a signature. He opened the USB drive on the nearby vault computer. Video files. One played automatically. Amelia. In a hotel room. Crying. Malcolm's voice, calm and venomous, off-screen. You'll never see him again, Miss Brooks. Sign the contract or your life becomes very difficult. And for the record, no one will believe you. Alexander slammed the keyboard. Meanwhile, across the city, Amelia was at the bookstore cafe she used to work at before she met Alexander. It hadn't changed. Same dusty chairs. Same chalkboard menu. Same smell of roasted beans and broken dreams. She stared at the phone in her hand. Still no response from Grace. Still no explanation for the text that hinted at more women like her. How many NDAs had Malcolm written? How many lives had he purchased? She stirred her coffee absent-mindedly. The twins were at school now, enrolled just days ago in a private program under new names. She couldn't tell them everything. Not yet. But she had to find out the full truth first. Grace wasn't answering. But there was someone else who might. At a rehab facility in Santa Barbara, a woman named Celeste Mathers was signing out under a pseudonym. She had been quiet for years, hidden in expensive silence. But the moment she saw Amelia on the news, standing next to Alexander at the gala, she knew her time was up. Celeste had been Malcolm Crane's assistant for 7 years. His other secret. And she had a vault of her own. In her storage unit sat a collection of diaries, audio tapes, and documents. Things she wasn't supposed to keep. She picked up her phone and dialed Amelia. Back at the Crane estate, Alexander emerged from the vault, his face pale, his fists clenched. Grace was waiting in the hallway. "You knew," he said. "I did," she replied quietly. "For how long?" "Since the beginning." "Why didn't you tell me?" Grace looked older than he remembered. Tired. Haunted. "Because I believed your father when he said it was for your protection." Alexander stepped closer. "I don't want protection anymore. I want truth." "Then you're ready for the rest," Grace said. "Because there's more. And it's about your mother." "My mother died when I was 10. Grace didn't blink. "That's what you were told." In a safe behind Grace's office bookshelf, hidden in a hollow wall, was a second folder. This one bore the initials, ACS Amelia Crane Sutton. Alexander's mother. Inside, a hospital report. A psychiatric evaluation. And one final letter. A confession. From his mother. To him. "My dearest son, if you are reading this, it means the truth has found you. I was not sick. I was silenced. Your father thought my depression made me weak. He institutionalized me after I tried to leave. I loved you so much. But I couldn't escape him. I hope one day you will break the cycle. I hope one day you will find someone worth fighting for. Someone who challenges you. Who defies him. And if you find her, never let her go." Alexander folded the letter, his hands trembling. He had found her. Amelia. She had defied his father. She had protected his sons. She had returned with fire in her eyes. And he had failed her. Not once, but twice. Back at the cafe, Amelia's phone finally lit up. "Unknown number, meet me at 11 p.m. Bring no one. 14th and Roosevelt. Park under the bridge." Amelia stared at the message, her heart pounding. This wasn't over. It was just beginning. And now the truth was spreading like wildfire. Amelia parked the car beneath the Roosevelt Bridge at exactly 10:59 p.m. The air smelled like rust, river water, and secrets. Her hands were clammy on the steering wheel. She glanced into the rearview mirror. No cars behind her. No movement. But she didn't feel alone. She took a deep breath and stepped out of the car. The shadows under the bridge felt too quiet, too still, like the world was holding its breath. Then a figure stepped from the darkness. A woman. Mid-30s. Blonde hair pulled back into a tight ponytail. Nervous eyes. Expensive coat. She didn't speak immediately. She just looked at Amelia like she'd seen a ghost. "You're real," the woman whispered. "I thought maybe I imagined you." "You sent the message?" Amelia asked. Celeste? The woman nodded. Celeste Mathers. I worked for Malcolm Crane. 7 years. Amelia's voice sharpened. Then you know what he did to me. I know what he did to all of us. Celeste reached into her bag and pulled out a thick envelope. These are copies. Diaries. Contracts. Audio files. I recorded everything. Not just you. There were others. Amelia blinked. Others? 4. That I know of. 3 signed NDAs. 1 vanished entirely. Vanished? She tried to sue. Malcolm made her disappear. She was never found. Celeste looked at Amelia with wide, fearful eyes. You're the only one who came back. Amelia took the envelope, her heart pounding. Why are you giving this to me? Because Malcolm is gone. But his machine isn't. There are still people, men, who protected him. And if they find out you're here, they won't let you stay. Let me. Amelia asked coldly. I'm not asking permission. Celeste smiled for the first time. That's why I came to you. Because you're the only one who didn't fold. A car passed above them, headlights flashing through the cracks in the bridge. Both women flinched. Celeste handed her a small USB drive. This has the original audio, including one conversation between Malcolm and someone named Nathaniel Crane. Ring a bell? Amelia's breath caught. That's Alexander's uncle. He vanished from the company a decade ago. Not vanished, Celeste said darkly. Silenced. Before Amelia could ask more, Celeste stepped back. Don't contact me again. If I disappear, burn everything. And with that, she melted into the shadows. Amelia returned to her car, heart racing, envelope clutched tight against her chest. She didn't go back to the guest house. She drove straight to Grace's address. Grace opened the door wearing a robe and a weary look. You shouldn't be here, she said. We need to talk, Amelia replied. Now. Inside, Amelia dropped the envelope on the coffee table. Celeste Mathers. Do you know the name? Grace froze. I thought she was dead. She's not. She has files. Audio. Documents. Everything. Grace sat slowly, her face pale. How much do you know? Enough to burn what's left of the Crane name to ash. Amelia leaned forward. Why did you help him? Because I believed him. I believed protecting the empire meant protecting the people. But I was wrong. Grace's hand shook. When I first met Malcolm, I thought he was brilliant. Ruthless, yes, but focused. Over time, I saw the rot underneath. But by then, I was part of it. And Alexander? Amelia asked. He doesn't deserve this. He deserves the truth, Grace said. And if you want to give it to him, I'll help. At that same moment, Alexander was at his father's old penthouse, staring at a dusty oil painting of Malcolm Crane. The man looked regal, powerful, impenetrable. And Alexander hated him for it. He poured a drink, then didn't drink it. His mind was spinning. Every secret, every lie, every silence. His mother. Amelia. The twins. His uncle Nathaniel. The vault. He needed answers. Real ones. Not just from paperwork or USB drives. From people. He picked up his phone. Find Celeste Mathers, he told his head of security. Alive or dead. I want to know everything. Back at the guest house, Amelia sat on the floor, her laptop open, earbuds in, the USB drive blinking blue. She hit play. Malcolm's voice again. We can't have another scandal, Nathaniel. Not after what happened in Zurich. Nathaniel, you're going too far, Mel. These women aren't threats. They're people. Malcolm, they're liabilities. You were always too soft. That's why I never let you run the company. Nathaniel, so you'd rather threaten them? Malcolm, threats work. Feelings don't. Then static. Then Grace's voice, she's only 23. If this gets out, we're done. Malcolm, then make it disappear. The clip ended. Amelia sat frozen. This wasn't just about her anymore. This was about a pattern. A system. A legacy of control. And she was holding the fuse. The next morning, Alexander showed up unannounced at the guest house. Amelia opened the door in silence, expecting anger. But he looked shaken. I know everything, he said simply. She stepped aside to let him in. They sat on opposite ends of the couch. He looked at her with open pain. My father lied to me about my mother. About you. About the company. About everything. I know, she said softly. I read her letter. My mother. She warned me about him. Amelia nodded. I think she would have liked you, he added. Amelia's throat tightened. Can I see them? He asked. The boys. She smiled. They're at school. But they'll be home soon. He nodded. I want to tell them myself. No lawyers. No blood tests. Just truth. They'll understand, she said. They're a lot like you. Across town, Celeste boarded a bus under a fake name, clutching a different USB drive. One she hadn't given Amelia. Inside it were recordings even darker than the rest. And if anything happened to her, it was going straight to the press. Because buried lies only stay buried. Until someone dares to dig them up. Alexander stood outside the private school gates, his heart thudding louder than the cars passing by. It was 3:02 p.m. The final bell had rung. The playground buzzed with laughter, backpacks, and tiny sneakers darting in every direction. Then he saw them. Liam and Caleb. One was chasing a soccer ball, the other climbing the monkey bars like a monkey on a mission. Alexander's breath caught in his throat. It wasn't just the resemblance. It was the familiarity. The way Liam tilted his head when he laughed. The way Caleb narrowed his eyes in concentration. They were him. And he was theirs. Whether he'd earned it or not. Are you ready? Amelia asked, standing beside him. He nodded. As I'll ever be. The boys spotted them and came running. Two blurs of navy blue uniforms and excitement. Mommy! Liam yelled. Amelia bent down, scooping them both into her arms. Then she turned to them, gently. Boys, there's someone I want you to meet. They blinked up at Alexander, curious, cautious. This is Alexander, she said slowly. He's your father. The world seemed to freeze. For a long moment, neither boy spoke. Then Caleb whispered, You mean, like the stories? Alexander knelt in front of them. Yes, he said. But I didn't know. I didn't know until now. And I want to. If you'll let me. Liam looked at him hard. Do you like space? Alexander smiled. Love it. Waffles? Extra syrup. Caleb narrowed his eyes. Can you beat us at Mario Kart? Alexander chuckled. I guess we'll find out. They looked at each other. Whispered something only brothers could understand. Then Liam offered his hand. Okay. But you have to sit in the middle next time we go on the roller coaster. Alexander's voice caught. He shook Liam's hand. Deal. And just like that, the wall began to fall. That evening, the four of them sat on the living room floor of the guest house, eating pizza and laughing through soda bubbles and old cartoons. For a moment, it was easy to forget the shadows outside. The lawsuits. The lies. The legacy. Because in this room, it was just a man and a woman, and two boys who finally had both parents in the same space. Amelia watched them, warmth blooming behind her ribs. This wasn't revenge. It was something closer to redemption. But just as Alexander tucked the boys into bed, his phone buzzed. Unknown number. A single message. I wouldn't get too comfortable, Crane. Blood only buys so much loyalty. He stared at the screen, the smile fading from his face. Amelia noticed. Something wrong? He hesitated, then handed her the phone. Her eyes scanned the message, then looked up, fear flickering. Who would send that? Alexander's jaw clenched. Someone who knows the bloodline isn't as clean as my father claimed. Across the city, in a smoky lounge lit by gold chandeliers and whispered threats, Nathaniel Crane sat across from a man in a navy suit and no name. He's asking questions, Nathaniel said, sipping bourbon. Digging into everything. And you, the man asked. I warned Malcolm years ago that this would come back. Blood doesn't hide everything. And the girl? She's more dangerous than him. The man leaned forward. Then maybe it's time we remind them what kind of empire they inherited. Back at the Crane estate, Grace sat in her office with old files spread across the floor. Documents. Ledgers. Birth certificates. One of them didn't match. Alexander's. Different hospital. Different attending physician. Different blood type. She narrowed her eyes. No, she whispered. It can't be. She flipped through the pages again. Then found it. A sealed record. Labeled confidential. She hesitated. Then opened it. Her breath left her body in one sharp exhale. Oh my God. Amelia was putting away laundry when Grace called. You need to come here. Now. Her voice left no room for delay. 30 minutes later, Amelia stepped into the office, finding Grace pale and shaking. What is it? Grace handed her the file. Amelia read. And read. And then stared at the last page. What does this mean? Grace sat down slowly. It means Malcolm Crane may not be Alexander's biological father. Amelia's mind reeled. But his name, the inheritance. All still legal. But the real father, according to this, is someone else entirely. Amelia whispered, Who? Grace pointed at a photo. A face from a forgotten family line. And a name she hadn't heard in years. Julian Maddox. Across town, a man in a dusty bookstore turned off the lights, locked the door, and pulled out a newspaper clipping. Malcolm Crane dead at 73. He lit a cigarette. Guess it's my turn again, he muttered. And in the darkness, the bloodline stirred. Julian Maddox had spent the last 25 years pretending he didn't exist. He lived in the back of an antique bookstore no one visited, under a false name, with a broken coffee maker and a scarred heart. Once, he had been a prodigy. A Crane rival. A legacy threat. Then he disappeared. By design. By force. By fear. Now Malcolm was dead. And his secrets were cracking like old plaster. Julian watched from the shadows, reading every headline, every whisper. And when he saw Amelia on the news, standing next to Alexander and the twins, he knew. The past hadn't just returned. It had multiplied. That evening, he walked into a hidden lounge beneath Venice Boulevard. A private room. No windows. A man was waiting for him, sipping whiskey, sharp eyes watching from behind a newspaper. You're late, the man said. I'm alive, Julian replied. Which is more than I expected by now. The man smiled thinly. You've seen the news? I've seen everything. Then you know they're getting close. Too close. Julian leaned forward. You told me I could disappear. That if I signed the paper, I'd be free. You were, the man said. Until the blood showed up again. Meanwhile, Alexander was pacing the Crane study. Amelia stood by the window, watching the rain gather on the glass. Julian Maddox, she repeated. Your biological father. Alexander didn't answer. He was staring at a birth certificate Grace had unearthed. Mother, Amelia Crane Sutton. Father, Julian Maddox. Not Malcolm. Not the man who had raised him in iron and silence. He was banished, Grace explained. After a scandal. Your mother loved him. Malcolm hated him for it. When she got pregnant, Malcolm offered him money to disappear. And he took it? Alexander asked. Grace nodded. With conditions. He couldn't contact you. Couldn't use his real name. He vanished. Until now. Why now? Amelia asked. Because, Grace said, he's the last piece of the puzzle. And someone doesn't want that piece found. Alexander's phone buzzed. Unknown number again. A new message. Too many bloodlines spoil the crown. Time to trim the tree. Alexander showed it to Amelia. Her eyes narrowed. It's a threat. It's a warning, he said. Or a test. At the Crane family archives, deep in the university library, a student clerk pulled a forgotten box from the wrong shelf. Inside were old journals. Letters. Photographs. One image slid out and fell to the floor. It showed Malcolm and Julian. Young. Smiling. Brothers. Blood. The clerk blinked. No way, she whispered. She flipped it over. Written in ink, Crane Maddox, 1982. She didn't know what it meant. But someone else would. She made a copy and posted it anonymously online. Within hours, it went viral. Amelia scrolled through her phone that night, the image appearing on every news feed. This changes everything, she murmured. They're brothers. Julian and Malcolm. Which means Alexander is both heir and exile, Grace finished. Twice over. Julian sat in his bookstore, watching his own face go viral for the first time in 3 decades. He didn't flinch. Just poured tea. Let them come, he said to no one. Moments later, the bell above the shop rang. It was Alexander. Soaked in rain. Staring at the man who looked just like him. Julian set down the teacup. You found me. Alexander nodded. I didn't know I was looking until I saw myself in a photo I never took. Julian chuckled. That sounds like family. They stood in silence for a moment. Then Alexander asked, Why did you leave? Julian's voice was calm, but tight. Because I was told I didn't matter. That my blood was inconvenient. That the world didn't need 2 Cranes. And because your mother begged me to live. Even if it meant disappearing. Alexander sat down across from him. My mother wrote me a letter, he said. She said if I found someone worth fighting for, I should never let her go. Julian smiled softly. You did. Alexander nodded. But now I need to fight for something else. The truth. Julian poured him a cup of tea. Then let's start telling it. In another part of the city, Nathaniel Crane stood before a private boardroom filled with silent men in suits. He slammed his hand on the table. He's found Julian. One of the men blinked. Impossible. Nothing's impossible anymore, Nathaniel hissed. We are at risk. The estate. The stock. The brand. Another man spoke. What do you suggest? Nathaniel's eyes glinted. We do what Malcolm would have done. Silence them? No, Nathaniel said. We rewrite the story. Make Julian the villain. Make Amelia the seductress. Bury them in scandals so deep they choke on it. And the children? Nathaniel paused. Collateral. That night, Amelia received another text. This time with an attachment. A news headline scheduled to publish at dawn. Billionaire heir exposed, illegitimate bloodline, former lover accused of fraud. She stared at it, her hands trembling. The war had begun. The headline dropped at exactly 6 a.m. It spread like wildfire through every screen in Los Angeles. Billionaire heir exposed, illegitimate bloodline, former lover accused of fraud. Underneath the headline was a photo, Amelia stepping out of a gala with Alexander and the twins. A perfect image. Now weaponized. Within hours, news anchors speculated, influencers posted hot takes, and the Crane board held an emergency meeting. The narrative had been flipped. Amelia, once silent and forgotten, was now painted as a gold digger. Julian, a recluse, branded a disgraced opportunist. And Alexander? A confused heir, caught in the crossfire of secrets. All carefully spun. All part of Nathaniel Crane's playbook. Amelia sat at the guesthouse kitchen table, staring at her phone as the internet devoured her. Comments flooded in. Some called her brave. Many called her worse. She sipped cold coffee and didn't blink. Not until she heard the front door open. Alexander walked in, holding 2 newspapers, both smeared with her name. He dropped them on the table. Front page in 3 languages. Amelia looked up at him. No interview. No quote. Just fire. Alexander nodded grimly. They're trying to smoke us out. Is it working? She asked. He met her eyes. Not even close. Later that day, a black car pulled into the Crane estate. Julian stepped out in a charcoal suit, clean-shaven, every inch a man who had stopped hiding. Alexander greeted him at the steps. You clean up well, he said. Julian smirked. I had 20 years to practice. Grace met them at the door. The board's waiting, she said. Let them. They walked together into the great hall, Alexander, Julian, and Grace. A united front. Amelia didn't go. She stayed home with the boys, watching cartoons and making waffles from a box mix, pretending the world outside wasn't crumbling. Inside the Crane boardroom, tension was thicker than smoke. Nathaniel sat at the head of the table, flanked by lawyers and legacy vultures. He didn't look up as Alexander entered. Julian pulled out a chair. Shall we? Nathaniel finally raised his head. I assume you're here to defend your circus? Alexander leaned forward. No. I'm here to reclaim the name you tried to bury. Reclaim it? It was never yours, Julian added. Nathaniel's mouth curled. Family drama makes headlines. Investors care about numbers. Grace stood. Then let's talk numbers. Since Julian left, the Crane Fund has lost 47% of its ethical holdings. Since Malcolm's death, 4 whistleblowers have been paid off. And this week alone, 5 major brands have frozen contracts because of this. She held up the article. This isn't damage control. This is systemic rot. One board member cleared his throat. We've read the evidence. The recordings. The documents. Another added, we're not interested in revenge. We're interested in restoration. Julian raised an eyebrow. Then vote. The room went silent. Then hands slowly rose. Back at the guest house, Amelia's phone rang. Alexander's voice came through, calm but urgent. It's done. They voted to remove Nathaniel. And you? I'm interim CEO. Effective immediately. Amelia exhaled. What happens now? We clean house. Then we rebuild. And after that? A pause. Then I come home. That night, Alexander returned just past midnight. Amelia was sitting on the porch, blanket over her shoulders. You're late, she whispered. I brought pie, he replied, holding up a box. They sat together, watching the moon rise between the clouds. No more secrets, she asked. No more smoke, he said. Just us. And silk. She leaned her head on his shoulder. And for the first time in years, it felt like the future was something worth believing in. The Crane estate was quieter than it had ever been. Nathaniel was gone. The board had dissolved its silence, and the house no longer smelled of strategy, only dust and old guilt. Alexander stood in his father's office, the one he used to tiptoe past as a child, too afraid to speak, too small to be heard. Now, he owned it. He sat behind the desk, staring at a file labeled Succession. Malcolm's handwriting was cold and sharp. Inside, a letter. To my heir. If you're reading this, I am either dead or irrelevant. Know this, legacies are built with blood, not belief. If you choose love over empire, you deserve to lose both. I built an empire so you wouldn't have to feel. Don't be weak like your mother. Don't be distracted like Julian. You were meant to rule. Alexander closed the letter without finishing. He slid it into the shredder without blinking. He looked around the room one last time, then walked out and never went back. Amelia was waiting for him in the courtyard, sitting on a bench beneath the cherry trees. She looked peaceful, but he saw the weight in her eyes. "How does it feel?" she asked. "To burn the throne?" He smiled faintly. Like stepping into sunlight after years underground. She reached for his hand. "Then don't look back." "I won't," he said. "But I do want to look forward. With you." That evening, they sat the twins down in the kitchen. Alexander looked at Liam and Caleb and said, "I want to change our name." The boys blinked. "To what?" "To something that means something. Not because of the past, but because of what we're building." Caleb whispered, "Can we vote?" Alexander laughed. "Absolutely." "Then I vote for Maddox," Liam said. Amelia's heart skipped. "Why Maddox?" "Because it sounds cool," Liam shrugged. Alexander looked at her. She nodded slowly. "Then Maddox it is." 3 weeks later, the Crane name officially vanished from the company banner. Maddox Foundation replaced it. The press raged. Investors panicked. But donations doubled. Whistleblowers returned. And a new story began to write itself. One rainy afternoon, Julian sat with Alexander in a quiet room overlooking the city. They were silent for a while. Then Julian said, "You did something your father never could." "What's that?" "You chose people over power. And somehow, you got both." Later that night, Amelia found Alexander on the rooftop. He was holding a letter. "From Grace," he said. "She's leaving." "Why?" "Says her work here is done. Says we don't need shadows anymore." Amelia took his hand. "She's right." Then she added, "Neither do you." The next morning, Alexander took the twins to school. He held both their hands. No security. No cameras. Just a man and his boys, laughing about peanut butter and volcanoes. Across the city, a reporter closed her laptop. The final draft of the article titled "From Scandal to Sanctuary, The Maddox Legacy Begins" was ready. She sipped her coffee and whispered, "Finally, a story worth telling." In the quiet bookstore where it all began, Julian placed one last journal on the shelf. On the cover, it read, "The Last Heir." He smiled to himself. And turned off the lights. It started with silence. The kind of silence that felt earned. Peaceful. Complete. A year had passed since the fall of the Crane name. A year since the boardroom wars, the scandals, the whispered threats. Now, the Maddox name stood in its place, not heavier, not louder, but clearer. And kinder. Alexander woke to the sound of giggles and sunlight. Liam and Caleb had snuck into the bedroom with pancakes and poorly sliced bananas. "Happy not your birthday," Caleb shouted. "We made breakfast." Amelia laughed from the hallway. "And a mess." Alexander sat up, rubbing sleep from his eyes. "I've never been happier to be ambushed by syrup." He pulled the boys into a hug. Amelia joined them on the bed, resting her head on his shoulder. No titles. No legacy. Just this. That afternoon, the family drove out to the coast. A small cottage near the cliffs, surrounded by wildflowers and salt air. It wasn't big, but it was theirs. Julian was already there, sitting on a wooden stool outside, sketching the sea with a charcoal pencil. He looked up and smiled. "You made it." "We always do," Alexander said. The boys ran ahead toward the beach, barefoot and laughing. Amelia watched them, her hair whipping in the breeze. "Do you think we'll ever tell them everything?" she asked softly. "One day," Alexander replied. "When they're ready. When it won't hurt them. Just help them understand why we fought so hard to start over." She nodded. "They'll be better men because of it. They already are." As night fell, they lit a fire on the beach. Toasted marshmallows. Told stories. Sang terribly off-key. Julian played guitar. Grace, who had reappeared unannounced with a bottle of wine and a tired smile, clinked her glass with Amelia's. "To the life we chose," she said. "Not the one we inherited." "To love," Amelia added. "And second chances," Julian said. "And waffles," shouted Caleb, raising a marshmallow stick. Everyone laughed. Later, when the stars were too bright to ignore, Alexander stood at the water's edge, staring at the horizon. Amelia joined him, wrapping a blanket around them both. "What are you thinking?" she asked. "That we lost everything we thought mattered, and found everything that actually does." She leaned into him. "No empires. No crowns. Just beginnings," he said. "And you." "And them," she smiled. "And this." The waves whispered back. Gentle. Steady. Infinite. Far away, in a glass office tower, a reporter clicked the final sentence of her book. She titled it The Beginning of Everything. It wasn't a story about a billionaire, or a scandal, or a power struggle. It was a story about love that refused to die. About truth that refused to stay buried. About people who didn't give up when the world asked them to disappear. She leaned back in her chair and whispered, "Now that's an ending." But for Amelia, for Alexander, for Liam and Caleb, it was anything but an ending. It was the beginning of everything. Just as Amelia leaned in to kiss Alexander under the stars, her phone buzzed in her back pocket. She almost ignored it, but the screen glowed with a number she hadn't seen in years. Unknown. She answered hesitantly. "Hello?" A pause. Then a voice, shaky, urgent, familiar. "Amelia, it's your sister." Amelia's heart stopped. "Is this some kind of joke?" The voice cracked. "No. I'm alive. And I need your help. They're coming for you next." Amelia's blood ran cold. She turned to Alexander, her eyes wide. The past wasn't done with them yet. "If your long-lost sister called in the middle of your happy ending, would you answer?" "Yes, I'd help her." "No, I'd protect my family first." Tell us in the comments. And don't forget, this might just be the beginning of the next chapter.